Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech. Today we're diving headfirst into the AI gold rush. We're seeing some absolutely gravity-defying valuations out there, but there's a growing chorus of skepticism asking, are the foundations actually solid? So we're going to look at the eye-watering numbers, the cracks in the bull case, and the really clever ways the biggest names in tech are placing their multi-billion-dollar bets. So here's what we're going to cover. First up, we'll look at the company right at the center of the storm and its massive new valuation. Then we're going to poke at the cracks in that foundation and talk about the tough questions being asked. From there, we'll break down the strategic gambles the tech giants are making. And finally, we'll step back and ask, have we seen all this before? And what does it mean for the future? Okay, let's just jump right in, because we have to start with the single number that has sent absolute shockwaves through Silicon Valley and really the entire world. It's a number that defines the sheer scale of this AI boom. $500 billion. Just let that sink in for a second. That's the brand new valuation for OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. It's a number so huge it basically reshapes the entire private market landscape all by itself. This valuation doesn't just shuffle the deck, it completely rearranges the tech world's hierarchy. At $500 billion, OpenAI is now the world's largest startup. It's pushed past even Elon Musk's SpaceX. And here is the paradox right at the heart of this whole AI boom. This incredible, mind-boggling valuation is for a company that is still deeply, deeply unprofitable. The cost to fuel this revolution, we're talking data centers, unprecedented compute power, the absolute top-tier researchers are just astronomical. It means the company is burning through cash even as its value just skyrockets. So the crucial point is, while the hype is absolutely undeniable and the valuation is off the charts, it forces us to ask a really, really important question. And this is where the skeptics come into the conversation. A growing number of analysts are ringing alarm bells, and they're questioning not just the valuations, but the very business models that they're built on. They're pointing to some really concerning data points that kind of challenge that dominant narrative. And here you can see the core challenge in a nutshell. OpenAI has this massive user base, 700 million people, but only 2% of them are actually paying customers. That means 98% are using the service for free, which, creates a huge question mark around monetization, especially when the cost to serve every single one of those users is so high. The skepticism isn't just about converting individual users either. On the enterprise side, where the big money is supposed to be, there are some serious doubts about real-world value. One of the big three consulting firms said recently that of the hundreds of enterprise AI projects they've worked on, a staggering 85% failed to deliver any meaningful benefit at all. So when you put it all together, the bear case becomes a lot clearer. You've got low user conversion, a questionable path to actually making money, and these astronomical compute costs. Then you add in what some analysts are calling obscure financial deals and aggressive accounting, and, well, you can see why some folks are getting pretty nervous. But with all this risk, how are the big players making their moves? So, with this incredible tension between the hype and the fundamentals, how are the established tech giants navigating all this chaos? Well, they aren't just jumping in blindly. They're making very specific, very calculated, and sometimes pretty surprising strategic moves. Let's start with Microsoft. They've spent at least $33 billion on something called neoclouds, and this is their strategic answer to the massive worldwide shortage of AI computing power. So what on earth is a neocloud? Well, think of it like this. It's a specialized data center built by a third party, like the company CoreWeave, and it's dedicated purely to AI tasks. So instead of building everything themselves, Microsoft is renting massive capacity from these other players to train their own internal AI models and try to catch up to their competitors. But here's the genius financial move. By renting this capacity, Microsoft avoids a massive capital expenditure, or CapEx, which would mean buying billions in servers that just sit on their balance sheet and lose value. Instead, it becomes an operating expenditure, an OpEx, which is just an ongoing business cost. This gives them so much flexibility to scale up or down, and it makes their financials look a lot cleaner to investors. Pretty smart. Okay, now let's turn to Apple. They're also making a big play, but it involves a pivot away from a product that's been getting a ton of hype. So, according to reports, Apple is deprioritizing further development of its super expensive Vision Pro headset. Instead, they're fast-tracking a more mainstream, more accessible product, AI-powered smart glasses. They're designed to compete directly with Meta's popular Ray-Ban glasses. It's a bet on a totally different form factor for this new AI era. And finally, we have Tesla. Now, the company just posted a record sales quarter, but for investors, the real story isn't about the cars they sold last month. It's all about the AI-driven future they're trying to build. See, that record sales number was largely seen as a one-time thing. It was pushed by buyers rushing to get a federal tax credit before it expired. For the long-term believers, the real thesis is that Tesla's value is in its AI bets, achieving full self-driving, launching a robotaxi network, and successfully developing the Optimus humanoid robot. And all of that is powered by the massive amounts of real-world data from their fleet of cars. So, what are you supposed to take away from this complex picture of hype and doubt and strategy? Well, to understand where we might be heading, it's actually incredibly useful to look at a similar moment in tech history. A lot of people are drawing a direct line from today's AI mania straight back to the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s. But the bulls, like investor Nancy Tengler, they argued there's a key difference. Back then, valuations were based on really flimsy metrics like eyeballs on a screen. Today, they argue, the underlying technology is just way more powerful and transformative. And the parallel is fascinating when you lay it out. In the late 90s, you had a massive investment cycle to build out the fiber optic infrastructure for the internet. That led to a bubble and then a spectacular bust. But, and this is the crucial part, all that infrastructure didn't just disappear. It laid the foundation for the next wave of giants, the mobile, social, and cloud companies that define the modern internet. Today, we're seeing a very similar massive build-out of AI infrastructure. And that leaves us with this final critical question. We are in the middle of a foundational build for a brand new technological era. The boom is here, and a bust may very well follow. The ultimate question isn't if this new infrastructure will create value, but who will capture it. Who will be the giants that rise from the potential ashes to define the next 2 decades, and who will be remembered only as the cautionary tales of the AI gold rush? If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.